Good morning, everybody. Oh gosh, what a big crowd we've got in today. This is something I don't know about. Well, welcome everybody. Lovely to have you all here in person or online. Thank you very much for attending our Regional Transport Committee. Tuesday the 9th of June. I just will open with a karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ka uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, he ki ana e te kura, he tio, he hoka, he hauhu, te hei maurioa. So, firstly, apologies. We have an apology from Andy Lyon from Kiwi Rail, but we are very pleased to have David Gordon in his place. So that will be welcome to the table, David. And he's a non-voting member, so I probably don't need to move that and second it.
We can second it because he's a member.
Oh, okay. Right, so I have somebody to move that, please. Thank you, Emma. Seconding, Perry, thank you very much. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, the motion is carried. Any conflict of interest declarations? Good, none. Thank you. Public participation, no, we don't have any. So now I'm just going to, we're adding in a couple of items today, important and timely updates. So bear with while I do the procedural requirements for us to enable this. And just also noting that this meeting is live streamed. So we have two additional items being added to this agenda. They're being added for this meeting in accordance with Standing Order 3.5.6 for the committee to receive an update on the Johnsonville train line incident on Saturday the 6th of June evening. This item will be discussed following the confirmation of the minutes. And then a second item for the committee to receive an update from Kiwi Rail on the government's budget announcement for Kiwi Rail. This will be agenda item 6, I will put it as, following the NZTA. Just item number 6. No resolution, decision or recommendation may be made in respect of these items, except to refer the item to a future meeting for further discussions. So just in case, say for example, Councillor Darren Ponter wanted to do one of his pop in a new recommendation, you can't. So I will, just a good heads up for us to know the rules around that one. So do I need to move on second to that? No. So we're all good with that? Everybody happy about that? So now we'll do the minutes from our last meeting on Tuesday the 31st of March. So do I have a mover and a seconder? Mover who was there, Perry, thank you. And then, thank you, Fran. Anybody wish to make any adjustments, corrections to those minutes? Right, okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, the motion is carried. And I'll just say that, just to help me out, just keep an eye out if anybody's got a hand up online, thanks, because it's quite dark on my screen. So now we shall move to our first added in item around the Johnsonville train line update. Welcome, and I'll just let you take it away.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, Mayors and Councillors. My name is Paul Tarpo. I'm the Senior Manager of Operations for Metlink. This morning I'm joined by Fiona Abbott, Assets and Infrastructure Manager, and I think most of you probably know Tonya Haskell, Managing Director of Transdev Wellington, and everyone knows Dave, so Dave will help join us today. The purpose for today's update is to give you an update on the Johnsonville line rail incident on Saturday night. Firstly, we'd like to acknowledge the seriousness of this incident. The incident has seriously injured 4 people, 2 of which were passengers and 2 Transdev staff. At this time, the condition of the 2 passengers is not yet yet known. The 2 Transdev staff are still hospitalised but stable, and our immediate focus is on their wellbeing and support. Metlink has a service alert up and also messaging on our website, asking the passengers on the train, of which we know there were 9, to get in contact with us. We also like to acknowledge the prompt response and professionalism of the emergency services, getting the injured individuals to hospital as promptly as they could. Okay, so this is what happened. So Saturday evening, just after 7 p.m, southbound 2-car set, Matangi set, effectively ran a red light after leaving the Kundala station. The track safety system diverted the train off the main line into a runoff where the train hit the stop block at approximately 30 kilometres an hour. The safety system performed as we would have expected. The train safety system absorbed the energy of the impact, preventing the rear car from telescoping over the front car, avoiding obviously a more severe outcome for passengers and the train. The Transport Accident Investigation Commission have a protection order over the train and the track to preserve the incident scene, and take an NZTA, the rail regulator, will lead the investigation. At this stage of the investigation, the cause of the incident is unknown. The Johnsonville line is currently closed, with rail services being bus replaced, and the line's expected to be closed until recovery is completed on Sunday the 14th, and so the line will reopen on the 15th, on Monday the 15th. There are 2 dependencies though. Remove the protection order and hand the site back to KiwiRail. That's supposed to happen at 8 o'clock this morning. That's now been pushed out to 11, so it may shift the timeline a little bit. Also, the second dependency is the infrastructure. So once the trains are removed, what the condition of the infrastructure is like, and what work or remedial work that KiwiRail would need to do to complete those tasks. So from a recovery perspective, so KiwiRail, Transdev and Metlink Assets team have developed a recovery program. Recovery is expected to start this morning and get completed by Sunday the 14th. Station Road at Kundala has been closed to the public to allow for the recovery efforts. The rear train will be shunted first back towards the level crossing, wrapped for transport so that the train is safe. It'll get lifted onto a flat deck semi and ready for road transport. Wednesday, the front unit will get pulled back to level crossing and follow the same method. Both trains will then be transported by road to the KiwiRail hut workshops, where they'll get detailed assessments done there. I suppose last of all, really just to acknowledge the efforts of KiwiRail, Transdev and the Metlink Assets team for managing the incident and developing the recovery plan. Sort of the dedication and commitment of all 3 organisations, I think, has been it's outstanding to get us to this point. We're all here to take any questions.
I just want to check in first, Fiona or David, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think it's a very full explanation of what can be said at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll probably just, we're also checking matters of insurance. So at the moment we have already been in touch with Transdev's been in touch with the insurance company because we hold our insurance through Transdev, and we're following all the due procedures around insurance as well to make sure that we don't interfere with the carriages before they've been assessed by Hyundai Rotem, who is doing that on behalf of the insurance company.
Great. Thank you. I just want to lead off questions around the welfare of those who are injured and passengers who we don't yet know if they are injured. So nothing's been said about the nature of the injuries. Is there anything we can kind of generally say? Are they head injuries, leg injuries? Yeah.
Firstly, I'd like to say I'm very grateful that has been how everybody's let out. It's terrible to have our people in hospital as a result of this, and to have passengers injured. So really do appreciate the support that has come through from the wider community on this. Our two people are in there in observation. They have both had head injuries, so have been concussed. One of them will stay in there for a while. He has had a reasonably serious knock to the head and has been admitted. Our driver is under observation, so they have bumps and bruises, no broken bones as far as we're aware.
And I guess another kind of delicate question around that for everybody who was on the train around the kind of the psychological impact around trauma experience. So are we kind of what's a process that we follow or are standing up to acknowledge and address that? Thanks.
So for our staff, we definitely have processes in place, and they are supported by both our staff and the union. We have EAP obviously available, but they'll be relieved of duty for quite some time until they're absolutely ready to come back. As far as the passengers are concerned, we don't have a manifest of who was on board, so we are working with GW to get them to contact us so that we can follow up. As I understand it, the injuries were light, but as you say, that we do need to see how they are and how they've been processing it and what we can do to help on that regard along with the GW.
Excellent, thank you very much. So take questions from Perry and then Tony. Thank you.
Thank you. How many incidences of red lights being run have we had in the last year or so? Is that something that has happened fairly frequently, or do we have other examples?
It's called a SPAD in the rail industry, a signal passed at danger, and it's one of our notifiable activities. This would be our fourth for this year. All of them are investigated and all of them are reported to NZTA and followed up. So it is unfortunately something that does occur.
In relation to future investment that may be made to prevent these kinds of scenarios happening, is it that the European train control system would have prevented this if that was in place? Is that right?
Yes, currently all the controls in a situation like this, other than the concrete block, are manual. So signals are managed manually, our driver drives the train manually, train control controls the exit of the train from the station manually. Yes, a European train control system would have definitely helped in this situation, in my opinion.
Darren's is doing a follow-up just for those online.
So, Dave, could you give us an explanation about what European train control is in lay terms?
Yeah, the way I'd sort of respond to Tanya's question, it may or may not have prevented the incident itself, but it certainly would have reduced the impact. In other words, the train either would have braked in time not to hit the concrete block, or may have hit it because it's still there, but much more of a nudge than a whack at speed. Effectively, as Tanya described it, we have a safe signalling system in Wellington. It is old, but it is extremely safe and extremely reliable, and it actually showed that it works. However, it is much less forgiving of incident or error than its equivalent system in Auckland. What ETCS does is monitor the way a train is being driven, and if the system believes it is being driven incorrectly, it intervenes and takes control of the loco, of the EMU from the driver. Now, what that in practical terms means is that it releases the train is not allowed to speed out of a station as quickly as they can. It's got a slower release speed. But more significantly, if you are approaching a red light, the system will detect the speed that the train is approaching, and if the system concludes that the speed is too great, it will slow the train down, and it will either stop the train in time, but you can still have a SPAD with an ETCS. But the way the system is designed, it's like you've got your traffic light on your road, then you've got a bit more space before the road actually appears. So you've got what's called an overlap. So even if ETCS doesn't totally stop the SPAD, it does stop the vehicle going beyond a point where it could conflict with another. So it is a relatively common and certainly well-proven technology in place in most metros in Australasia. In fact, Wellington is the one that is the unusual one.
Thank you for that. I'd just give it to me, would it be similar to what I have in my European car?
I'm not sure what car you've got. I'm not sure how much it takes over from what you have, but it's fundamentally around the braking. So if you're, I guess an example, if you're on auto cruise and you're coming up behind a vehicle too fast, that does slow you down. It is, basically that principle, just a bit more sophisticated in terms of that.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony.
Yes, I've just got three hopefully quick questions. First of all, the train looks like it's quite damaged. Did the train, as a safety vehicle, did it perform and help, even though it was damaged itself, did that help protect people?
Yes, it performed exactly as expected.
Okay, that's great. As a local person who lived quite near there, how long will the road be closed? And so, in terms of, is it going to be continuously closed, or is it only be closed for like a period of time while you get the vehicles out?
I'm not totally sure of that. I don't think the movement of those trains from Station Road happens till, I think, roughly Thursday. So it would be close to at least then. I think there's two very big cranes there at the moment.
I can probably
they've got
talk
a single
bit more. We've
crane
got two cranes, one a lighter one, which is going to be used to drag the trains from where they are to Station Road, and then a much larger crane to lift them onto the vehicles itself. It is going to, I don't know the exact detail, but you should assume that Station Road is blocked for that period of time until we can clear that, because setting up a crane like that takes time. I think the safer assumption is it's closed.
Okay, and I just assume that the local residents and businesses who own the closed road will be contacted and such like. Yeah,
I think that's been done by Wellington City Council.
Okay, well, yeah, hopefully. So, and the last question is, you outlined, although you know what happened, you don't know the cause. What's the sort of time frame? I know these things do take quite a long time, but what is the current expected time frame for the investigation to determine the cause?
So there's a number of investigations underway, including our own with KiwiRail around what are the systems and that led to a crash, because we need to learn anything that we need to learn urgently, we need to take on board. So we'll be working with GW on that. There's also an investigation by NZTA and by TAKE. TAKE has openly said it will take about 18 months. They will, of course, if there's anything urgent within that time, they will put it through. I don't know how long NZTA will take. But you can be assured if there's anything urgent out of there that we need to learn, we will address it immediately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And openly between the three parties involved.
Thank you very much.
It's Darren and then Simon Edwards.
David, just want to come back to the European train control issue. So you mentioned that, I think you inferred that European train control or some form of it is in play in Auckland. Why isn't that a nationwide system, and what does it take to get that in place across the country?
ETCS was introduced in Auckland contemporaneously with the introduction of the new trains through there. And because the Auckland network had to be fully re-signalled at that time. So confronted with a situation that you're fully re-signalling a metro area, very difficult to say, from so far as reasonably practical, that you shouldn't have ETCS at the same time. Wellington is in a slightly different position, which is not to say it shouldn't have ETCS, but we are approaching a stage where we need to do some comprehensive re-signalling of a number of junctions. And I think when that happens, the same business case will be put forward and has been put forward to say you should be doing ETCS at that time.
Okay, so
but we as the so we're not the regulator. We cannot compel ETCS. A regulator can, and a regulator has done so in Auckland for our locos. It is, as long as people are very clear, this is about fitting out the network, and it's also about fitting out the trains. So it's cost across a number of entities, and it is expensive because in Wellington's case, you would have to do it contemporaneously or immediately following major signals upgrades as well. We wouldn't just be doing sort of plonking ETCS on top of what you've got.
right. So my observation, I suppose, David, is that we've been having a conversation about ETCS for quite a long time in the Wellington region, given that that's our particular focus. Looking from the outside in, it looks like we're going round in circles on this, and I'm trying to understand which agency is actually responsible. If I were to pick up the phone and talk to a minister or an agency, who is actually responsible for making the funding decision and actually getting this moving?
Well, there are two parties that would be making the funding decision. It would either be through NZTA as the funder of public transport, or through Vote Transport, being the Minister of Transport, for a Crown-funded investment. One of those two.
Is it? I know this puts you in a difficult position, David, but is it?
Yes, you do.
Yes. Sorry, a few times in the past. Is it? Is it fair to say, or can you see my observation that this ball is just being kicked around somewhere in the public service system?
You have put me in a position. I think that I guess I'll express it because I've got my own shareholders talking to this as well. It is a big chunk of money for someone to spend. The advice I've been providing my board is that it's very, very challenging to run the standard economic model and get this across the line. In fact, it probably, if the cold hard logic of incidents, probably indeed what's the likelihood, what's the cost, etc., probably won't get it through the standard cost benefit analysis that public agencies have to provide.
Yep.
An incident may change that.
Okay.
Can I follow up on that? I wonder, am I allowed to ask Emma Spate a question? So, in a follow up to this, so in the regulation, as a regulator, is there a trigger or assessment to compel? What is the trigger for an assessment that you would have to compel KiwiRail to invest in that system? Like, is there what's the kind of, what would trigger you to make that assessment?
It's not quite like that. So we work with KiwiRail on their safety case. So they're required to have a safety case to operate a train system, as all providers of train services are. There is a regulatory framework around that, and currently the operations are all operating under safety cases, so they have safety systems in place. Whether we as regulator would require a changed system would be a much broader discussion, I think, that we'd have to look at. I haven't had any advice on that, so I'm not going to suggest what would happen.
Okay, so Simon online and then Steve Cretney.
Thank you, but Darren's questions were similar to mine. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. David, I've just to follow on from what Darren was asking, just thinking about the Wairarapa, and I believe that the Wairarapa line has been fully re-signalled. Will the new rolling stock that's coming in for the Wairarapa line, will that be ETCS capable?
It is ETC. It is. Perhaps I'll get GWRC to say, but my understanding is that it will be able to be introduced into that vehicle if ETCS were there, but it's not coming in with ETCS equipped. So what's happening on the Wairarapa line? You're actually going from a control system which is 100% verbal instruction to a driver, which is inherently more risky just because people sometimes miscommunicate, to a system where you have got red light, green light, etc. So that it is actually being made safer through there. The Wairarapa line re-signalling is being designed so if ETCS came along, it could be very simply overlaid on the Wairarapa line. So we're designing and enabling it, but not doing it.
And that's essentially the same thing for Greater Wellington with Tūhono as well. We're doing exactly the same thing. So what Dave's talking about, the Matangi fleet would have to be retrofitted. Tūhono, it would be a matter of installing.
Can I just ask on that, Fiona, in relation to the Tūhono trains, that build is, they're still to be laid down in the factory. So there's what, a 2-year sort of window here, or 2.5-year window where we could make the decision and fund the inclusion of the TCS instrumentation in the trains.
Probably Barry would be the best place to inform you of the technical detail on that, whether it would be ETCS enabled before it got here or whether we would still choose to put it in once the system, like it feels like we would probably commission it here in New Zealand.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And Anita online.
Thank you. When you did the big signal spend in Wellington, you replaced all the signal boxes and everything. How many years ago? 4? Can't remember. Did you look at doing this at the same time? Because to hear it's an economic spend and people's lives are here, I'm a bit like Darren Ponta. It seems a pretty tragic thing to say. So did you look at it then?
Of course, every piece of signalling upgrade that we've done over the last 5 years has been done with the view that ETCS can be overlaid on it. So all the work we did in the station entry and other junctions has all been designed to have ETCS put on it. But just so people understand, this, you're right, this is people's lives, this is the thing, but you're talking somewhere between $500 million to $750 million.
So we are just talking money then, aren't we? We're only talking about it's actually there. You could put it in if you had the dollars.
Yeah, it could go in if we had the dollars. It's not a quick process. It would be about a 4-year. We did Auckland in 3. We retrofitted our loco fleet in Auckland in 18 months. At the moment, we would be starting, if someone turned up and gave me a check tomorrow, I would say it would be about a 4-year process.
Don't need to hammer both sides of government. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So I don't think we've got any more questions. I really appreciate the timeliness of that update. Thank you very much. And thank you for the questions, because it was really good to kind of explore, and I'm sure will prompt some thinking for a lot of us. So then I want to move on to the KiwiRail budget announcement update, which David is going to talk to us. And just, David, you weren't at our last meeting, but perhaps you've seen from the minutes that we had some conversation pre-budget, and it was very pleasing to see in the budget announcement the fruits of those concerns. So timely for us to get an update from you. Thank you.
Okay, so I've got some notes from Andy on this, but I think I'm reasonably well across it. So the budget announcement itself was for the what's called the Rail Network Investment Program, and to be clear, that funds the networks outside of Auckland and Wellington. So that is for the freight network. Just narrowing it then down to Wellington. The Wellington network is funded jointly by Kiwi Rail and Kiwi Rail Freight Operations for its share of the network, but predominantly by Metlep/Transdev, because they are the major users of the network. The budget announced a $109.6 million investment for the metro networks for a period of 1 year. And this million, no, I can't buy ETCS out of it, I'm sorry. 109.6 million for 1 year, which is associated with catch-up renewals, as it's well known that the Wellington network has catch-up to be done. It was only for the 1 year, and that is very much linked to the fact that the government has yet not defined what its revised metro rail model network will be. Hence, there is a limitation on funding, whereas the macro announcement for the freight network as a whole was for the 3-year period, which is great through there. And if Andy were here, he'd be able to talk a little bit more about the absolute areas where the money is being spent. But although it may seem coincidental, the discussions he and I have been having is around, because of the disruption of the expenditure, the type of work that needs to be done, do we spend the early years enabling the network to run more bi-directional, so we can close one line and fix the other? So that points you to saying, do we spend some of this money on signalling works that enable that to happen, as opposed to getting right in and just digging up the tracks, which has to happen at some stage. So there will be obvious work like sleepers track and ballast and slopes and the rest of that. But the discussion we're going to be having with officers is, well, where do we spend that? For example, do we actually upgrade the junction at Taita? Again, it won't be upgraded, it won't have ETCS because we're not funded for ETCS, but do we upgrade it in a way that enables future maintenance around that area, enables it to be ETCS usable, etc., and chip away at that. We're delighted with the funding we got. The number is a big number. It's for the maintenance and renewal of the network for that period of time. And the metro one is the same. It does, but it still awaits the solution to the metro model as a whole, which at present is a significant funding burden on Greater Wellington relative to its rating base.
Okay. I just wonder if anybody's got any questions, and particular Perry, I wonder if you've got a question or a comment to feed directly to David, because you were part of the question line last time.
I do have a question. How do you know? I mean, 1 year funding is good, but it's not several years of funding. How much closer is this funding going to get us to having met some of that deferred maintenance that, basically we should have already done? How much closer are we going to get?
Put crudely, it'll get you $60 to $65 million closer. But I think the bigger point, 1 year's funding beats no year's funding, absolutely. But the way in which it can be delivered most efficiently, with the least disruption to passengers, and to sort of underpin the fact that you want to grow your PT network, you have to have a view on what the long-term strategy is. So if you've got 1 year, you tend to apply it to fix the immediate.
and then you 1 year, 1 year. The greater certainty you have, you can say, let's fix bits that enable us to fix the rest more efficiently later with less disruption. So the choice we have to make is, do we apply this money to deal with the immediate, and we certainly are going to going to war on any temporary speed restrictions with this dollars, but it is a long way from being what you want. You're looking down a 10 to 15 year program of catch up, which is okay. It's we had to do the same in Auckland over a 4 year period, but that is massively disruptive. And you had something at the end, which is the City Rail Link, and you could sort of put up with the pain because something magnificent is coming at the end. A slightly more difficult message in Wellington because you're just getting a better version of the status quo, which is slightly harder to sell, I think.
So what investigations are being done around you said that there's multiple ways to do this, and I guess one of the ways, instead of looking out to 10, 15 years, is actually go hard in a particular, set yourself up for the next few years and then go hard in a particular year with a longer shutdown of the rail network for an extended period of time to really tackle some of that deferred maintenance. What would you need? I mean, has that been looked into, and what would you need from in the way of certainty or funding or assurance for that to happen?
So, absolutely, it is being looked into, and the trade-off is between getting it and getting it done, which was the Auckland model, and trying to sustain passenger growth in a period of decline. I think that the way we look at it is, it's not like nothing can be, it ends this year and there's no more money to come, because that just leads to an inevitable decline of the asset. So we have to go in with some confidence that there is a next year, even if next year isn't confirmed. The ideal world for us and any infrastructure provider is to have what the NZTA has, which is just a 3+7, to have 3 years, relatively locked and loaded, and then the 7 is uncertain. But you've got some reasonable view of what that might be, and then you can start to invest in, instead of basically using diggers, you can start to invest in production machinery, which actually halves the amount of time you need to actually take the line out. But it's really the 3+7 is the core issue here.
Thanks, David. I think the frustration I have with the money, as good as it is that we're effectively being drip fed year on year, which doesn't give you, as KiwiRail, the ability to plan out as extensively as I'm sure you would like, and it doesn't give us the confidence that the renewals program is actually going to come to a conclusion in the future. So I suppose my question is, to what extent a multi-year appropriation had been considered, or some way of actually giving our communities an understanding that funding will continue in the future, rather than the tap just being turned off on and off on a casual basis.
I actually cannot answer that. The process went through the standard budget process, which goes with the standard budget confidentiality issues. I'm sorry, okay, but that's all I can say.
So, second question, Madam Chair. I think you alluded to it in one of your last questions, David. We've been waiting some time for a decision from the government, or an understanding at least from the Minister of Transport, around MRON and how we jointly, between ratepayers and taxpayers, fund the rail network in the Wellington region. Are we any closer to getting that?
I've no more information than the last time we spoke, Darren.
Okay.
Okay, so have we got any further questions on that? So can I just, a question of clarification. So you may or may not have put in a bid for multi-year funding, but you can't confirm that because of budget confidentiality.
I'll do it simple like that. It's budget confidential, so the may or even the may or may not doesn't come into it. I cannot confirm in this meeting something that is budget confidential.
Cool. That's great. Oh, good opportunity for us to have that update and for you, because Andy had a good kind of steer from the table on the collective thoughts and views. So it's really good that you are here, thank you, to hear from firsthand. Great. So I'll now move on to the item that is road journey time reliability headline target. And so I'm welcoming Catherine and Stephen up to the table. This is Catherine Knight and Stephen Christie. Thank you. Noting that this is an item where we have 2 recommendations to consider. So I'll let you take it from here. Thank you.
Always forget. Kia ora koutou. So this is just a report to advise the committee on an additional headline target for journey time reliability roads only for the Regional Land Transport Plan. And so I will take the report as read, but Stephen and I are here to take any questions or any clarifications that you seek.
Questions? Tony, thank you.
I'm just a bit interested that you don't recommend this as a target. If this is not a good target, then why was it offered as an option in the previous paper as option B, which the committee decided to adopt? Because I thought the points that were made in the previous paper were pretty valid, and I actually appreciated that option being put forward.
So just to respond to that question through you, Madam Chair. Yes, so what was agreed to by the committee last at the meeting on 31st of March was to look into the viability of a target around this. At this point, there was no target as such. There was no measure. It was simply that we could look into progressing further the viability and the usefulness of a target that would measure journey time variability. There was some caveats around that. The fact that if the idea was to measure economic productivity, for example, the correlation between journey time reliability or variability and productivity is quite weak. So that point was made, that caveat was made. But so we have certainly progressed we've done exactly as the committee asked us to do at that time and progressed the work to look very, very closely and with great detail into the viability of such a measure. And that is set out in the report.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question on point number 13, which talks about the Kapiti to Wellington route, and that it has remained largely unchanged since the opening of Transmission Gully in terms of the journey time variability, noting the investment of $2.5 billion for that. Can I just check my understanding? So that is indicating that the variability between peak and non-peak is unchanged, but the journey time may have reduced. Is that, or has the journey time not necessarily reduced either?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. What our analysis found is that certainly where we've got Transmission Gully in place, journeys are faster and more reliable. From Porirua into Wellington CBD, journeys have become at peak times a little slower and a little less reliable. So when we look at the journey as a whole, they sort of balance out to some extent. And so overall, there's not a lot of improvement for the total journey from Paraparaumu to Wellington CBD.
Can I offer a kind of an opinion as a person who lives in Kapiti Coast and lives in Otaki, that, and I've sort of mentioned this to officers, that in my experience, there are actually two different experiences. There is that morning experience, which I could, like this morning, that's how it does roll. The difference in my experience, without exception, is that it is about the afternoon journey from Wellington back up the coast, and the reliability, the shortened journey is significant, and the reliability of that is significant, because previously from 3:30 onwards every day there was the huge bottleneck at Pukerua Bay, and there is absolutely no bottleneck now, ever. So that is like, there are two different, like the morning version and the afternoon version are completely different experiences. So I have sort of, put into and from my view, that there actually could be two different kind of measures, but I don't think that's doable or whatever. So period.
Could I have a follow up on that? So, does this data tell us perhaps that it just moves the bottleneck?
I think there's an element of that. I'm not sure that we've. I think we might need to do a separate analysis to answer that specific question. Has the bottleneck just moved with no overall benefit? That's not something that we've attempted to answer. So if the question is kind of more around the selection of journeys that have gone into this sort of the regional average that we've calculated here, I think there's a really good point that, as the chair has said, like there are really kind of multiple experiences, different parts to that total journey, and maybe it's separate AM, PM, peak. So the basket that we've got, we think, is a good sort of overall indicator of the region's experience when the network's most under pressure. But your question about sort of has the bottleneck moved on this particular journey, and you could ask similar questions for a lot of different routes around the region. Those are really interesting questions, and I think they deserve further analysis, and I think there's probably some scope to look into some of those sorts of questions as well.
Okay, I'd like to offer some analysis, in that I don't think again, from my experience of years of commuting, that the bottleneck hasn't moved. That bottleneck was always there. There were two, and actually really three bottlenecks along the journey from Kapiti into Wellington. Now there is only a bottleneck from Poirua, but really Johnsonville. And the bottlenecks previously were the Raumati Strait, if you were doing the journey south, and then going through Mana. So now there's actually only one bottleneck, but it's still a bottleneck, and so just everybody still gets there. Thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay, in that case, I would request a mover and a seconder for the recommendations, please. Perry's moving, I'll second in that case. So any thing you want to say as the mover? No, I'm all good too. Nobody online got anything? Great, I'll put the motions. Oh, sorry. Oh, Tony, yeah, sorry.
So, so thank you, Chair. I've consulted with some other councillors, and this is a report that provides some very interesting information. However, I'm going to say that I'm going to vote against this. I think that having a network target is an important target for the regional land transport strategy, in conjunction with the other three targets. First of all, note that congestion does go up and down, and these measures are, that were outlined in that graph in particular, they go up and down, even on the average of these areas. And also, sometimes congestion gets worse and then it gets better. As you outlined, for example, if we did the same measure but in the reverse direction, we would probably get quite a different result about the impact of Transmission Gully. As someone who lives in Johnsonville, where the congestion starts, I have to say, my experience is I only drive in congestion. So I think it is important, and it's important to note too that Wellington City and access for people to Wellington City is shown to be above the national average and actually quite a concern. And so I think the comment that it doesn't indicate as a headline target, that can be applied to all of our targets. Our safety target, our CO2 target, the mode shift target. We have different mode shifts in different parts of our region, and that's all munged together. But that's not, the actual measure is not the point of the target. The actual point of a target is to say we want to keep an eye on this for a purpose of making the transport network a good network. The main reason why I think we should have this is not necessarily to drive improvements, although certainly the improvements we're getting, for example, from some of the RONS projects, but also the improvements that we're getting to want to drive things like transport demand management. This is a target that will enable us to reflect that we want to do this. But I'm also very concerned that we need to maintain our network. Despite all the efforts of mode shift, most people travel into town by vehicle on these roads, and yet there's no target that reflects our purpose to maintain their access across the region. Sure, the reliability target is problematic. If we did we could do a travel time target, and that would show another sort of result. But I do think we need to have a target to make sure that as we are evaluating the individual projects, that the projects the officers understand that projects that compromise the reliability of the main network, that's flagged as a factor, and if it's degrading that target, that needs to be highlighted as a concern. And lastly, I'm just conscious also of the purpose of our strategy to try and connect in and through the government and through the GPS, for example. I think having this target could be useful because in this political world, the government's GPS seems to jump around quite a lot. And certainly we want to have a regional land transport strategy that has a broad base to drive forward on so that we can engage through the GPS to make sure that the resources that we need are able to be accessed. So while I understand the officer's concern, I think we need to maintain the target because I think it's an important factor for our future strategy. Thanks. And I ask you, please, to vote against this.
Thank you, Tony. Anybody else want to speak to this? Okay, in that case, I'll put the motion and we might well record that if we want to.
River Division, yeah.
Yeah. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? No. So I see two, and online I see a third. So we'll record those. So Craig, Tony, Stephen Cretney. Three against, and what's the maths for 4? But the motion is carried. Thank you. Right, the next item, public engagement on draft strategic framework, and Grant and Emma coming up to speak to this one. welcome and thank you. And the floor is yours.
Okay. Kia ora koutou, Madam Chair and members. I'll take the paper as being read. This is an information paper on the public engagement on the draft strategic framework. Just a couple of additional points that I'll make sure I can actually find my notes that I'd actually like to make about the paper and a couple of the points in it. The purpose of the engagement is to get further public opinion through, based on the work that we've already got, that will inform the finalisation of the objectives and the transport investment priorities that will be used to rate the programme of activities that we will be working on with you later in the year. So there's an opportunity for people to change in that. The other point that I also just wish to point out is Mana Whenua partnership, and since last time we have spoken, we've had significant engagement with NZTA Waka Kotahi and aligning our partnership with the State Highway Strategic Programme so that we will be jointly consulting through a series of hui with Mana Whenua partners, and their views will also be incorporated into the final paper that will come back for endorsement of the strategic front end and then ultimately the RLTP itself. The other point I would just draw your attention to is that it is likely that the timing of the survey, which we're using the GW online survey techniques, as this is what previous respondents have indicated that they respond best to, is likely to be in the mid to late July timeframe, which then allows us time to collate and analyse the results and present them back to you at this committee's next meeting in September. So with that, we'll take any questions.
Excellent, thank you, Grant. So any questions? I'm looking online. Anybody in the room? Just Perry, I'm just inviting questions for the public engagement paper. No, none. Right. Oh, Fran, thank you.
One issue which is always in research, Wairarapa gets the tiny sample because we're a very small population, but our transport needs are completely different from the rest of the region. And at some stage we probably need to say, you know, can this be done separately? Because they're not pushing our data in with the rest of like the previous paper. I mean, it's just happens every time we do anything. It really doesn't make any sense. Just wanted to get that on record. Other than that.
So just through the chair, so yes, acknowledged, and when we did the earlier work in conjunction with Greater Survey, we did break out the Wairarapa data, and we'll ensure with the results that that data is also broken out so that your concerns are reflected and shown separately, because we do acknowledge and understand that the transport needs are significantly different from the metropolitan regions. Yes, that is always the problem that we've got, and we always have to caveat it, and it's a small population base, so acknowledge the challenge.
Yeah, just offline, maybe we could have a discussion about how we correct that. You know, I don't know how, but we need to talk about it.
Can I just offering one idea that comes to mind is like, so if you were to do something at your council with your members there, for example, that would at least add to the exposure of it. And yeah, okay, thank you. Oh wow, thank you very much. Asked and answered. That's brilliant. So we'll move on to the next item with Emma presenting on Waka Kotahi's update. Thank you.
Okay, so as usual, I will provide a national update first, followed by the regional update. I'll pause briefly between the two. So in terms of the national update, as you're very familiar, we have the process here on the NLTP timeline, and all of the work that officers across every road controlling authority and public transport authority are following. And bearing in mind that we don't have a GPS, and we are not expecting to have a GPS until after the election at this stage. So that means we will have to review the content to ensure that it has considered the GPS for the purposes of RLTP, and then when the board considers that, they'll have to give effect to the GPS. So those are the two steps that's important to ensure that we work through the process, but also keep open to the fact that it may need some updating. Alongside our normal process, we are reviewing the funding assistant rates, and we will have those updated in about August of this year, and they'll be advised to all road controlling authorities. We're also working on our SHIP, the State Highway Investment Proposal, and we've had obviously a look across our whole network to look at where all the opportunities for investment are, and that then gets prioritised nationally, and those will be submitted as part of the RLTP process for each region. The national ticketing solution is moving ahead with the rollout in Christchurch. So they have the system live on their buses, and they are now in the process of starting to roll out concessions. And then later this year, they move to Invercargill, then Wellington will be due to come online in Q2 of next year. So there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes as the system becomes fully operational in Christchurch, and all of the processes, particularly around concessions, are ironed out. This doesn't apply particularly to Wellington, but across New Zealand we have transitioned nearly all of our contracts for the state highway maintenance to a new contract form, the Integrated Delivery Management System and Contracts, and they all started on the 1st of May. Wellington has an alliance, the Wellington Transport Alliance, and that continues to run, so we haven't transitioned to the new approach here. But we continue to manage the network through that system. The New Zealand Guide to Temporary Traffic Management is an important new system that all road controlling authorities are required to adopt, and have new contracts transition by 1 July of this year, and all existing contracts by 1 July of next year. And there's a range of reporting requirements. And those of you who are familiar with the Transport Insights portal, which provides publicly available information on all road controlling authorities, that information is now uploaded there, so you can see it at each quarter. One of our big safety programs is the introduction of average speed cameras across the network, and we have a number of those rolling out. The first one for our region will roll out on State Highway 2 through the northern part of Upper Hutt later on this year. So we have the infrastructure being put in place at the moment for that one. We're seeing some very impressive results in Matakana, where driver compliance has improved from 88% to over 99%. And what has been quite striking is that when we do some monitoring before we finalise the locations for these, and the locations that we have selected have seen significant speed infringements occurring in advance of those cameras going live. So they're definitely corridors that have high risk behaviours, and also are where we have seen some significant crashes. So they're very useful tools, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest when the one in Upper Hutt goes online. We've been working on our driver licensing work to support people who face barriers to getting their driver licence, and so we have some community providers who are providing that service, and we have those here in Wellington through Youth Inspire and Assess It Limited. And this really means they've been very successful across the country where we've rolled these out. We know that having a driver licence is a great tool for people to access employment, and not having one provides a pathway into the criminal justice system that we would much rather have people licensed and able to drive safely and legally. As we know, there's been significant severe weather events right across the country, and some quite major ones in Wellington, and we're obviously experiencing potentially another one today that will impact both Wellington and Wairarapa coastlines. So it has been a huge part of what we're doing, and particularly the work that we've been doing with Civil Defence and NEMA to manage that. So one of the things that's been really important and valuable is the SIMS system, the Coordinated Incident Management System that we use for emergency management in New Zealand. It has worked really well. We've had, certainly ourselves, have been participating in those ones that are coordinated by local government, and we have our own ones set up as well. And that enables us to prioritise our response and manage those according to the expert assessments on the ground. But it's one thing that I would certainly reiterate that as the region's mayors, you do have access to me at any time in any of those emergency events if you're concerned about the road network or have questions or issues that you want to be raised directly, and I can feed those into our incident management teams as well as going through the processes with your own councils. So any questions on those national updates?
Darren has a question and then I have one.
Sorry, it was earlier on in the presentation. So the national ticketing solution, Emma, when that does roll out for Wellington in Q2 2027, will that be the full Monty, if you like? Is that going to be everything that the national ticketing solution is going to deliver, or is it a sort of partial?
I'd just have to go back and check with the team. We will have the concessions up and running in Canterbury, so what I'm not sure about is whether the rollout will immediately put all those in place or whether there's a two-step process. So I can check with the team and confirm that with you.
Thank you.
Okay. My question was also around the national ticketing solution, and just wondering about the state of play now and how that will be in the future, because when I was down in Christchurch just a couple of so weeks ago and was using the bus system, just when I got used to tagging off and tagging on and tagging off, they don't tag off there because of their different pricing structure. So long term, will that be the same, won't it? Or what is there thought to how that kind of consistency can be brought in? It threw me a bit.
I have been told, and I've completely forgotten because I asked that myself. I can again check that with you. It does relate to the actual pricing structure in Canterbury, and that is going to be changed, I think, once it's nationally rolled out, but I'll double check.
Harry.
Thank you. Just in relation to the NLTP process, and in particular around the Paris targets, recently Nicola Willis said that it's not in New Zealand's interest to send cheques for billions of dollars offshore, which indicates, I think, that there's some there would be some requirement for domestic action if we were to meet those targets. Is there anything that you can tell us around around the conversations about that in relation to the NLTP, given transport is one of the biggest opportunities we have to take action, and that this NLTP would be the best opportunity to do that before the 2030 target?
I've not had any briefings on Paris targets relative to the current NLTP. Okay, coming to our region, obviously one of the most significant pieces of new infrastructure came online in May for the region, which was the new seawall walking and cycling path between Wellington and Lower Hutt. It has been incredibly popular, as many of you will know and will have experienced it. We've had numbers exceeding 10,000 on fine weekend days, which is rather more than we would expect, but numbers over 2,000 on weekdays of people walking and cycling and scootering as part of their commute. So again, quite high usage levels, much higher than we had anticipated. We expect that to drop back a bit, particularly as the winter weather impacts on people's journey choices, but we've had fantastic feedback and people really enjoying it. And obviously, with some of the swells today, we may well see the value of it in terms of the protection of the railway line when we have these sorts of events. So really fantastic to see that open and people actively getting out there and using it and enjoying it. Another major road of regional significance is our milling improvements, part of Te Waitaka Mori o Te Awa Kairangi, and there's a lot of detail there. There's a lot of work, and anyone in the Hutt Valley and around the region travelling through there will be seeing that. There's been a lot of work to load up the ground to prepare it for foundation work for the new bridge. A lot of work to start preparing each of those sites for piling, and changes to existing traffic layouts, both in terms of the closure of Block Road and the work along High Street and the intersections there. It is a large project. It does have a significant impact on local journeys. We've worked very closely with Hutt City and with the Regional Council to try to ensure that we are coordinating our works and we are really thinking very carefully about the impact it has on those local journeys. We've seen initial delays that were being experienced, particularly on State Highway 2, have dropped back to a much more consistent level, and so we think people have adjusted their journeys and also become more familiar with the changes to the layout. Things will continue to change as each phase of the project rolls out, so we will keep updating regularly, both through our own communications but through the joint communications with Hutt City and with Greater Wellington as we proceed. But the work is going very well. We're very pleased with it, and we're also very pleased that the recent weather events have not had an impact on the work site. Also proceeding well with State Highway 58 improvements. We've had the switch to the full use of the new roundabout at the Flighties Road intersection, and we'll now be starting to prepare for switching traffic onto the new roundabout at the Moonshine Road intersection. And we've been very impressed. The drivers using the route have adjusted very well, and so we've seen people move through and adjust their behaviour, and we've had no incidents of concern on that route. So that's fantastic, and we're getting closer to completing that work. Just the updates on roads of national significance. Teams continuing to work on the Petone to Granada road work in terms of the design work that is necessary before we proceed to consent. So we have had significant engagement that is required under the FTA and engagement opportunities for landowners and people in the impacted communities. So that work continues, as does work on the State Highway 1 Wellington improvements. We've had significant community feedback, so we are still working through that. And we're anticipating coming back to further discussions with Wellington City in just after their August break, and then we will look to proceed to lodging consents for that project. Completing one of our previous roads of national significance, the Mackay's to Peka Peka Expressway, we have almost completed the Peka Peka to Otaki revocation component, and they're all just in the process of finalising the last of the works this month, and then minor snags and other details, and working in partnership with Kapiti on some of the water works that are being done by council. And we have also almost completed the works for the Commercial Vehicle Safety Centre at Mackay's Crossing. This will enable us to monitor and enforce requirements for all heavy vehicles using State Highway 59 and State Highway 1. And we'll look to have an opening date probably either later this month or early in July. These are the most fantastic technology. They have in-road weighing system. They weigh every axle of heavy vehicles as they go over them. They immediately identify both the vehicle and the whether there's any non-compliance, and that individual vehicle then can be called off into the site for detailed assessment and any response by the police officers on site. So they are incredible. They also provide a clean, dry workplace for those commercial vehicle safety teams. And where they are in place, we have seen, again, significant drops in non-compliance as soon as they're turned on. And those weighing systems monitor 24/7, even if there are no police on site. So we have data that we can then use to target further enforcement if we need to. And just on the northern edge of our boundary, the Otaki to north of Levin to Tararua Road of national significance, huge amount of work going on there that those of you who travel further north will be seeing in some areas. There's a major program of work. We have two separate alliances working on the northern and southern sections of this, and a lot of work in terms of preparing, again, the ground for future construction, putting in place sediment ponds, and putting in place things like culverts that will be necessary through the project. And the information centres are now open, so the community can drop in and get information as they need. Just right across our network, our Wellington Transport Alliance team have completed a massive renewals program, including managing 613 potholes as part of our requirements. But a huge amount of work is detailed there in terms of what our team does every year. And we're also planning for some significant rebuilds in the next year. So we have State Highway 2, as always, has a significant program of work, and we'll look to come out particularly to Carsten to talk about next year's program before that gets underway. And then some work also on State Highway 1. And the rebuild, so when we dig out the road and rebuild it, and then we also have our resurfacing program. So again, a big program of work across all of our network for the next financial year, and those are very, very weather dependent, so we try and target those through the summer months. The rebuilds can happen throughout the year. And Transmission Gully, we have significant program of environmental work that we're still going through, including fish passage, a significant program of planting, steam restoration, and then we are planning how we can support the Porirua Harbour restoration alongside the Porirua Harbour Accord. So that's ongoing, and in addition to that, we completed a massive program of drainage and pavement work, and we'll be carrying out some additional drainage work this summer, coming summer, and then some more pavement rehabilitation early next year, moving from chip seal to asphalt. We do get a lot of questions about whether people have heavy vehicles are using Transmission Gully, or there's been some suggestion there's increasing numbers using State Highway 59. So we can see here, this is the pattern of use for daily heavy vehicle totals on Transmission Gully, which has been showing a gradual increase, and corresponding a gradual decrease in use of State Highway 59. So that was just in response to quite a bit of commentary we've been having about whether State Highway 59 was being increasingly used. We're certainly not seeing that currently. And the final one is just showing you the plans around what's happening at Lanes Flat, Pawatahanui, on State Highway 58, where we are in the early stages of work for installing our Wellington Transport Alliance base at that location, and also putting in place the final planting and other work there to restore that area that's been used as laydown and materials of storage through the Transmission Gully project. And there's also a cycle or pedestrian clip-on going on the bridge, which has been slightly delayed. All the preparatory work's been done, but the bridge prefabrication has been delayed, so we haven't quite managed to get that onto the bridge yet, but that will happen later this year. So that's an update on what's happening there. And just finally, pretty much across the region, we're largely on track with expenditure. We're expected. We're a little behind on public transport infrastructure, which relates to the outstanding decision on Golden Mile and the related infrastructure there. So overall, the region's doing well on expenditure relative to plans.
Okay, thank you very much, Emma. So I've a line of questions from Anita, then Simon, and then Darren, and then Tony.
Thank you, Emma. That's great to see you're working with our harbour accord. They're itching to get those extra planting in for Transmission Gully. Quick question, 58 is looking fantastic, but where it joins Parramatta Road, where we keep getting cars in the harbour where we had a death, and I've asked you to get it reduced to 60k. We had 2 more in last Thursday. There was no major injuries because it was high tide and they were floating. When can we see a reduction in speed on that road so that it matches up with the one on the other side of the harbour?
It's certainly on the list for a review. I'll have to go back now that we've largely completed this year's batch of reviews and see where it's been scheduled. I can come back to you on that one.
Thank you. That's it.
Simon?
Yeah, thanks for the report, Emma. And I just want to say that Te Aro Tupua is just such a massive asset. I'm glad to see all the naysayers have completely shut up now. But and as the crowds will certainly calm down after a time, I'm sure. But seems to me that there's a bit of a safety risk in the meantime. So my questions: who is responsible for safety issues along that shared path? And in particular, does legislation have anything to say about some of these motorised or electric scooters that are doing easily 50 k's, 60 k's and using that path?
Yes, so safety issues have definitely come up. So in terms of people's behaviour on the path, there is no speed limit on the path, and as with most shared paths, I don't think we have any shared paths with specific speed limits. So we do ask for people to be courteous and respectful and aware of other users of the path, and to be prepared to stop if other users behave unpredictably, as often happens. And so we have been consistently sharing those messages and engaging in terms of social media with that. So sharing the path with care and courtesy towards others remains our first point that we would make on that. In terms of the regulation around micromobility scooters and also the speed of e-bikes, that's a separate matter. I can't comment directly on that, but I can certainly talk to our regulatory team to see if we have some more information about any consideration of what regulatory tools might be needed around micromobility.
And thanks, Emma. Just confirming that NZTA is the controlling authority for that path rather than either Hutt or Wellington City Councils.
We maintain the path, but it does sit within both Hutt City and Wellington City Council. So, for example, dog control sits with the councils. We maintain the path, but I'm not sure that there's any other aspects of that maintenance activity that falls within specific restrictions on the path.
I think Perry has a follow-on from that.
Thank you. Te Ra Tupua is obviously a fantastic success, and well done to everyone that was involved in it. We, on a few weekends back, I tried to get to Te Ra Tupua parking and then crossing the road with a small child, and nearly got run over, quite close actually. A car slammed on their brakes to avoid us. And I saw other parents fretting about trying to get across the road with multiple kids, multiple scooters or bikes or whatever it may be. Is there any work being done on that side of the connection? Because a lot of people want to use that facility, but at the moment they can't get to it with a safe cycle.
Are you referring to Jarden Mile end or
I was talking about Petone end, but like outside of Bunnings is where we nearly got run over. But at both ends, I'm sure there's I've heard issues at the other end too.
Yeah, so it is something that we've been aware of. We have encouraged people to use the train to access it as much as possible, because obviously if you go to Petone Station, there is an underpass there for direct access, and it's safe and doesn't require crossing any roads. And similarly at the other end, you can, if you go from the Wellington Central Station, for example, to Petone and then bike, cycle or walk the other way, that does mean you can stay off road for your journey. We are working on improvements at Jarden Mile to provide better connections at that end. In terms of the Hutt end, we hadn't identified the need for any specific changes there. there are safe crossing points further along, pedestrian crossings and pedestrian lights. So we would encourage people to look at perhaps using those and the parking facilities further along, where you can, if there are parks available, then walk along without needing to cross the road. But we would expect to see that demand ease a bit as people use it, but we certainly do encourage people to use the train wherever they can.
Thank you. So Darren, then Tony.
Yeah, I think there's a question I've asked in the past, Emma, in relation to toilets on the Te Ara Tupua. Congratulations, by the way, for being part of getting that in place. It's going to be a wonderful asset to the region. Facilities seem to be good at the northern end, but at the southern end, there's nothing that I'm aware of. And given the numbers that we now have who are using it, especially presumably more in the summer period, I'm sort of wondering what consideration NZTA has given to whose responsibility it sort of is, and how we collectively, not looking to single out NZTA, but how we collectively find a solution to that. It just seems uncivil, if you like, that we don't have public toilets in that area.
Yes, so we don't provide toilet facilities. It's not part of our role. And there was, in terms of consenting, the access and location of waste on the walk was not appropriate in terms of the design work. We did identify a location at Jarden Mile that could be suitable for facilities to be installed, and we identified to both Greater Wellington and Wellington City that was a suitable location, and we would be prepared to support any installation if anyone else wanted to take responsibility for providing toilets, but neither organisation was in a position to do so.
I'll come back to that in that case. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. The governance and management of that path, I didn't realise that how much the City Council may have a role. I guess I first ask offline if we could maybe get someone to contact me just to work out who's in charge of the road rules on the path, if you like, because if there is a safety issue, we want to get on top of exactly who needs to assess the safety issue and do it reasonably promptly. The on the issue of the toilets, I have to note that you can go to the toilet if you're a motorhome there. You just can't go to the toilet if you're a person. So there is certainly sewage reticulation to that site. So I think we should maybe look at what we can do there. With respect to the RONS project, though, I just wonder if you could maybe update us on the engagement at the officer level that's been happening between the City Council, Regional Council, and the NZTA project in terms of just sorting out the interconnecting bits. I know you've got your purpose to deliver the project. Looking forward to both projects, but how is it working in terms of reference groups or whatever? Are they meeting more regularly and that sort of thing?
Yes, so both of our RONS projects have a connection set up with the relevant councils. We've had very constructive working relationships on that and working through a wide range of issues and options around design, consenting, and the different interests that different users of the network have and how that might work. So those have been very constructive. That's been my advice, and what I've seen of people working together has been very good. It's not to say all issues have been fully resolved. You wouldn't expect that at this stage, but but certainly we've been able to look through most issues and identify whether there are options and test those options as we've been going through the design process. Also as a result of feedback, we have been looking at some changes to some of the designs that respond to questions or concerns that have been raised, and as we work through those, then obviously officers are working with us on whether that addresses other issues or raises further issues. So it's an iterative process. We're certainly very happy with the commitment, the engagement, and the insights that they're providing to us.
That's very good news. Thank you. Good to hear. And lastly, just more for information for everyone, because you did mention the Golden Mile as being one of the outstanding items in the expenditure program, and we're just the City Council is having a briefing at 11:30 on Thursday morning, so people are welcome to dial in and have a look to see what the findings are of the independent report that we've commissioned on that. So, thank you.
Will that be on the website or?
The briefing's on the website. If you wish, I'll forward the chair the link to the meeting so that people can get an email from distributed from the committee, so that you can have a link to watch the YouTube either at the time or afterwards.
Lovely. Awesome, thank you. So I think that's all the questions now. So thank you very much, Emma. That was really good. Hope the budget filled you with joy and happiness. Yeah, good. So look, thanks very much, everybody. We'll conclude our meeting now, and then let's have a 10-minute break so we can refresh, and then we'll crack into the workshop items. Mindful that some may need to peel off that start that or during that. And just want to thank everybody for today, and thank you very much to the staff who've prepared the papers and supported and been able to ask the questions. So, and thank you for your company, David. Gordon, good to have you here. So thank you very much, everybody. Now we'll close now with the karakia. Kia tau te marangimi, rangimai, ki ranga, ki raro, ki roto, ki waho, e o te orangi, ka whakamau, ki tina, hui e taiki e.